Somehow, despite any of my expectations, my video about the Happy Tree Friends bonus pack somehow got, as the YouTubers say, a lot of views. For this reason, I am totally on board making more Happy Tree Friends content, as there's still a lot of history I haven't talked about. More specifically, there's been a lot of tidbits and trivia that I've wanted to talk about in videos, but a lot of them don't have enough substance on their own to really warrant their own videos. So I decided to take a big selection of trivia that I know about and make it into an iceberg chart, where the trivia gets more obscure the further down we go. I've seen a couple icebergs of the show online, but a lot of them used memes and fan theories instead of actual trivia, so I decided to make one myself, sticking to solely official material. I dug very deep for the trivia in this video, so my hope is that even if you're a big fan of the show, you'll learn at least one or two new things by the end. So, without further ado, let's start with Level 1, the simplest trivia that the majority of fans will know of. Starting off with a very easy one, not for kids. Fun fact, this show isn't for kids. A shocker, I know. Moving on, we have Flippy. Flippy is by far the most popular character in the series due to his nature of flipping out due to his PTSD and killing every other character. Having a character who is genuinely malicious is a big change to the formula of the show, and he's not used very often. That, combined with his over-the-top killing methods, makes him a very popular character, and 95% of fan art and a lot of the merch is based off of Flippy. And hey, if anything, I totally get it. Flippy killed a guy with a cookie and then ate it, and then he proceeded to wear the guy's skin in order to get his brother to jump into a hay bale grinder. Now that is exactly the type of stupid, over-the-top death that Happy Tree Friends is built off of. Because the show is entirely based around stupid, over-the-top deaths like this, Flippy providing some of the best ones is a surefire way for him to become the most popular character. Moving on, we have Kapow. Kapow was the short-lived spin-off series to Happy Tree Friends. It was mainly based off of giving origin stories for Flippy and Splendid, as well as finally giving Buddhist Monkey his own show after being rejected from the main show and delegated to just a DVD bonus feature. While Flippy's episode was well received, and most of the episodes were pretty good and the fans did like it, the show only made 3 episodes. A main reason for why Happy Tree Friends has gone on so many hiatuses is due to the budget, and Kapow tried to combat this using a Kickstarter. However, the Kickstarter failed to reach its goal, and although the show was never outright stated to be cancelled, the fact that nothing's been made in so long makes it pretty likely that the show is never coming back. Moving on, we have the TV series and TV airings. This is referring to the general fact that the show has aired on TV in various regions on various channels, mainly G4 in America with Comedy Central and MTV in some other regions. In 2006, the show got a dedicated TV season of 13 episodes consisting of 3 segments each, leading to, basically, 39 whole episodes. The last known airing of the show, from what I could find at least, is from 2019, when a now defunct network aired various Mondo Media cartoons as a special. So if you want to watch the show on TV now, you're kind of out of luck. But, I mean, who has cable today anyways? Flaky's gender. The character of Flaky was initially designed by Rody Mondijo to be male. However, after Nika Lorberg took over the role as Flaky, many fans and crew members thought Flaky was a girl. This led to a running joke where the crew and the fans really couldn't decide on whether Flaky was a boy or girl. At one point, the show even made fun of this debate with Flaky being unable to choose a bathroom, eventually choosing the men's room. Even after years of debate among the crew and the fans, Flaky's gender was never confirmed. They never ended up settling the debate, so it was eventually left up to viewer interpretation. I agree with creator Ken Navarro in that the gender of a character really doesn't matter, especially in a show like this. It's not a big deal. And now we move on to Level 2. Slightly more obscure trivia, but most big fans of the show will probably know about these ones. Starting off, we have False Alarm. This is really the only major game release that Happy Tree Friends has ever had, released by Sega of all people on Steam and Xbox 360. The game is kind of like a 3D version of Lemmings, where you don't really control the characters, you control the environment, and you're trying to get them to the end safely. The game wasn't particularly popular when it came out due to its short length, poor AI, and just not being a super interesting take on the series. However, the episode made to promote the game is actually quite good and is well remembered. The episode was originally only viewable within the game by beating it, but now it's available to watch online for free. Only 2 years after the game's release, around 2010 or so, the game's Steam release was taken down and is no longer purchasable. However, the Xbox 360 version was never delisted, so you probably should get a copy now if you want one before the store closes. Next up is Fall Out Boy. The music video for Fall Out Boy's The Carpal Tunnel of Love is an original Happy Tree Friends animation by Fat Cat, the same animators who worked on the TV series. It's notable for having the actual band represented as Happy Tree Friends characters, then dying 5 seconds later. Sadly, unlike any of the other TV episodes, this was never released in HD, so that's a bit of a bummer, but it is still available to be watched. But other than that, there's really not too much to say about it. It's pretty good, so you should go watch it. Banjo Frenzy. This is the original episode used to pitch the show to Mondo Media, and it's very clearly a pilot. It features a different art style and different characters, and despite only being 20 seconds long, it is perfectly representative of what the show would turn out to be. For a while, it was a DVD exclusive, but later was released online for free. Years later, the episode was actually referenced in the show in the episode Wrath of Khan, so it does get to live on in a sense. Vote or Die. This was an event held in March of 2010 to decide whether Lammy or Truffles would be added to the show as a main character. The voting ended on April Fool's Day, where the winner was jokingly revealed to be Lumpy, with the actual results being revealed the following day. Truffles got over 70,000 votes, but ultimately lost to Lammy, who got over 100,000 votes. True to their word, Lammy was added to the show as a main character, while Truffles was demoted to mere cameos, with no real role ever made for him. Ironically, because the show went on hiatus not long after the event, Lammy only ended up having 7 appearances in the show, while through cameos, Truffles had over 20, meaning that he was in more episodes than the actual winner of the contest. This is one of those things where it's cool as an event, but it's really kind of a bummer because instead of having 2 characters, we just got 1. Like, seriously, why can't we have both? But anyhow, if more episodes are ever made, I hope that Lammy gets more to do, as she's a fun character. Maybe we'll even get merch for her, I don't know. TV and internet DVDs. Throughout the 2000s, 3 volumes of internet episodes and 4 volumes of all the TV episodes were released for purchase in stores or online on the Happy Tree Friends website. First Blood is actually considered the main reason as to why the show got popular in the first place, as it really didn't do well online, but once the DVD came out and sold really well, that's when the show took off and made them want to continue it. The rabbit hole of these DVDs and their many different releases is enough that I'm probably gonna do a whole separate video going over them, alongside some overseas releases, the bonus features, and all that sort of stuff. So stay tuned if that's the type of thing you might be interested in. Mascot costume. Used mainly at Comic-Con, a mascot costume of Cuddles was made to promote the show. It was also used to promote the Slap Happy mobile game, which I'll talk more about later. Of course, this is not to be confused with the actual retail Halloween costumes made for the show, and they're great. This costume is actually very similar to the Fun for All Cuddles plush, both in appearance and its ability to remove its hand, as well as its guts. Sadly, this costume hasn't been seen since it was viciously eaten by alien hominid, and this is why Cuddles was never seen in the show ever again. Curse you, alien hominid. You won't get away with this. Starting off level 3, we have the Video Bomb Contests. This was a series of 2 events hosted by Truffles, where fans would create and submit their own custom characters, and the ones that got the most likes would be awkwardly placed in the background of an episode, standing there, doing nothing. The first one was just making a simple character, but the second one was Halloween-themed, where you had to put your character in a costume. For example, the character I just showed is meant to be dressed up as Ryu from Street Fighter. Other submitted characters that didn't get first prize were posted to Mondo Media's website in a series of fake trading cards. Next, we have Giggle's mom. This is mainly here to represent the fact that this show has a lot of instances of early installment weirdness. In one of the earliest episodes of the series, Helping Helps, you can see Giggle's mom, And yep, that's just Giggles, but taller. This is apparently the only quote-unquote adult character in Happy Tree Friends. I'm not really going to argue against this, considering the ages of the characters change frequently, and despite the fact there are 2 characters who I would definitely call adults, but whatever, it's a dumb show with no lore, so it's really not a big deal. And keeping up with the theme of mothers, next we have Pop's wife. If you have a character whose entire purpose is to be a parent, it brings up the obvious question of who the other parent is, and this is a question that plagued the fans and the crew for quite a while. Many of the cast even gave their own personal opinions on what happened to Pop's wife on the DVD bonus feature Behind the Screams, alongside other frequently asked questions such as what is Flaky's gender. But unlike Flaky's gender, this actually has a definitive canon answer. It was confirmed both in the show and on Twitter by Ken Navarro that Pop's wife is canonically dead. Trust me, this wasn't planned, but I just happen to have 3 segments in a row about characters who we no longer see, and this leads us to Scrapped Characters. On the First Blood DVD, there's a little featurette called Oodles of Doodles. This shows off lots of concept art for the show, early designs for characters, as well as the key focus of this segment, scrapped characters that never made it to the show. Examples of these scrapped characters include Chargy, Penny, Pranky, Cookie, and they just get weirder from there. If you want to watch this special feature and see all the characters with explanations from the creators, it's up on YouTube, so you can go watch it if you're interested. Next is voice recasts. One thing that's interesting to note about the voice actors for the show is that a lot of them weren't really actors outside of the show. They were basically just people around the building that they got to do a voice. Because of this, a lot of these actors would be replaced over time. In summary, Giggles, Petunia, and Cub were originally voiced by Dana Belbin, then they were voiced by Ellen Connell, and then Lori G for the last few seasons. Russell was originally voiced by Jeff Piancolana, but then was replaced by Francis Carr. Lumpy and Splendid were originally voiced by Rhodey Mondijo, but then David Wynn took over the role when Rhodey left. Lifty and Shifty were originally voiced by Mark Giambruno, but were eventually replaced by Ken Navarro. Even though these characters have all been recast, it's not uncommon for archival clips from previous actors to be used in the show. For example, the following 2 clips are nearly 20 years apart. This is especially the case with Pop and Flippy. The voice actor for both of them, Aubrey Ankrum, left the show around 2005 and hasn't recorded any new lines since. This means that all appearances of Pop and Flippy since 2005 have been just archival footage, as they didn't want to recast him. These characters have very distinct, unique voices that really help their personality, so I'm happy they didn't recast them. Interestingly, there's also instances of characters being temporarily voiced by other actors when the original actor was unavailable. For example, Warren Graff was unable to provide Handy's voice for A Whole Lotta Love, leading to Handy being voiced by Ken Navarro in that episode, even though Ken usually only plays Cuddles. At the end of the day, these characters don't really talk, so it's not a big deal. And the reason they don't talk is because of the show rules. These are the general guidelines the writers try to stick to whenever they work on the show. These rules can and have been bent multiple times, but in general, these are the rules. No guns, as they're just too easy. No overtly sexual situations, as it makes the show not really innocent, which is the whole point. They try and stay away from toilet humor, although this one has definitely been broken multiple times. Tech should be relatively old. This is why the show uses typewriters and giant cell phones. And the most prominent rule, and the one I was just talking about, is that there must not be any recognizable human language in the actual show. According to the DVD commentary, this rule can actually cause some problems.
Yeah, it would have been so much easier just to write diner on the diner, but...
Well, that's how, if you look at the storyboards, Charlie, wrote diner on top, and then only later did we realize, wait a minute, we don't have any words in this show.
While sometimes characters will say things that do sound like words, generally this rule is pretty well followed. Finishing up level 3, we have the Flash games, or officially known as the arcade games. In the late 2000s, various Flash games were released on the official Happy Tree Friends website. They are technically on the Mondo Media website, but they're all completely broken and are unplayable officially, so you have to play them on the Internet Archive if you want to play them. They're mainly just super simple, basic Flash games that really don't do much with the source material. It'd be a waste of time to talk about all these games because there's a lot of them, but maybe I'll make a video about all the Happy Tree Friends games if there's interest. So if that sounds like something you'd want to see, then let me know. Starting off level 4, we have Blood Samples. These were sampler mini DVDs released both online and at Hot Topic stores. 4 of them were made, and they all contain different assortments of content from the first 3 internet DVDs. You'll have to bear with me as I couldn't get these running on my computer, so here's a screenshot of my TV. This is what the menus look like. They contain a few episodes, as well as a couple bonuses, like facts from First Blood and the official website. In Germany, 2 of these blood samples were put into a big standard DVD case under the title Greatest Hits. This release is a bit of a mystery to me as I couldn't really find any good pictures of it, but I do know it does exist. I've seen a couple go for sale. Because these are mini DVDs, they're a bit hard to archive, but I do own all 4, so hopefully I will do that eventually. Next up, we have Fat Cat, specifically the character. Fat Cat was a Canadian animation studio that animated the TV series for the show, as well as that Fall Out Boy music video that I talked about. Their first work for the show were for these bumpers on G4, and in one of them, you can see a character in the background based off of the Fat Cat logo. You might know these shorts better as Happy Tree Friends Break or Happy Tree Friends Is Dead, as they were named on the Mondo Media YouTube channel. From what I can tell, the studio still does exist, but the actual Fat Cat brand is completely dead. Your mileage may vary as to where this should be on the iceberg, but I put it down here. Banned in Russia. A Russian court actually placed a ban on the airing of Happy Tree Friends on TV, claiming that, quote, watching the animated series undoubtedly harms young children's spiritual and moral education and development, and contradicts the humanistic nature of upbringing inherent in Russia. Wait, are you saying that Russian kids aren't allowed to watch this? It's completely preposterous. I don't know why you would ever ban something like this. Of course, as I said, your mileage may vary on how obscure this really is, as it was officially acknowledged by Mondo Media. Slap Happy. Told you we'd get to it. You've probably seen a game like this before. It's basically just an avatar of Cuddles that you can throw around and abuse as much as you want. Because this game is just a simple time waster, it was eventually delisted, and no updates that were ever planned were actually released. In terms of the actual game, there isn't too much to talk about, but the advertising for this game is actually pretty great, which involves real-life people abusing the Cuddles mascot costume that I talked about. These ads are pretty funny, so if you want to go watch them, I'll leave a link in the description. Art Book. Despite the show being American in origin, Japan loves this show and made a ton of exclusive merch for it. With this merch came an exclusive art book called Happy Tree Friends Illustration and Artwork, released in 2015. It's a pretty typical art book, including concept art, promotional art, character model sheets, and stuff like that. Most of this art is from pretty easy to find sources, but some of this art actually debuted in this book and was never seen beforehand. Sadly, this book didn't have a ton of production, and again, it was only released in Japan, so good luck getting your hands on a copy less than $100. Starting off level 5, we have Leather Bulkin. Keep in mind that this has never been officially written down anywhere, so this spelling might be wrong. While the short Dinosaur Days was eventually released online, it lacks the intro that it had on the DVD version, which was the original release. In the original version, there's a character called Leather Bulkin, played by Lippy, the voice of Nutty. He's a Happy Tree Friends historian presenting the episode as if it were a genuine 1920s film. The reason this is so far down is because despite the fact that many people do own the Third Strike DVD, I doubt many people would want to watch Dinosaur Days on the DVD, when you can just watch it online for free. From what I could find, there is no information about this character online. He's not on any wikis, there's no pictures or mentions of him anywhere. He's just kind of a weird thing that nobody really talks about, so that's why he's so far down. It's a pretty funny segment, so if you want to watch it, I've posted the footage in the description. Lost G4 bumpers. Remember those bumpers I was talking about earlier that eventually got released online as Happy Tree Friends Break? Well, recently, over a decade later, the 2 other bumpers that were never re-released were found and uploaded via a VHS recording. Nobody had even considered that these existed, so this was a massive shock to see in the 2020s when there was basically no Happy Tree Friends content in years. Another thing is that, does this shot of Petunia look a bit familiar to you? Well, it's because it was actually featured in the art book over 5 years prior. Meaning that wasn't just some random piece of art, that was actually from something that we just didn't suspect even existed. The fact that this is in the art book means there are probably HD versions of these bumpers that have never been released for whatever reason. And with how Mondo is trying to campaign for the show to come back, maybe it's time we start campaigning for them to release these bumpers. Bonus pack. If you ordered First Blood via a TV commercial aired on Comedy Central, you would get a free bonus disc with 3 additional episodes from Season 2. I made an entire separate video about this thing, so if you want the specifics and how I found all this out, go watch that. I may have gotten some of the dates wrong, but it's hard to know for sure, so just take some of the dates with a grain of salt, but otherwise that video does still hold up. Track Toothy. Like a lot of shows done in Flash, Happy Tree Friends has lots of animation errors, and it would be a fool's errand to talk about all of them here. I'm talking about this one because not only is it such an interesting error, but it also breaks one of the show rules that I was talking about. In the episode Blast from the Past, there is a very small window where if you look in the top right corner of the screen, you will see the text, "Track Toothy with camera." This was obviously here as a guide for the animators that they accidentally left in the show, accidentally breaking one of their own rules about human language. As I said, there are way more animation errors in this show, and I could make an entire video about them, but this one is just too different and too fascinating for me to not talk about. VHS. When the show started to get DVD releases, VHS was completely dead in America, but the UK actually hung on to the format for just a bit longer. This led to First Blood getting a dedicated VHS release in Europe only. All the interactive elements were removed, but it is still pretty cool to watch the show in this format. I'm glad that I own one of these, as despite it being completely impractical, it's a really cool thing to own. Secret First Blood commentary. The main commentary on First Blood is no secret. However, there's actually a second secret commentary for every single episode, as well as a secret commentary for the Russell episode. This was obscure enough that the first person to upload it online was me, actually. It's on my channel, so if you want to go watch it, it's right there. However, some overseas releases of First Blood removed this commentary, so if you're not from America, you might not be able to watch it on the DVD itself. MySpace. Remember MySpace? No? Well, various Happy Tree Friends characters actually had MySpace accounts. From these pages, we can learn such amazing facts, such as Flippy likes tea and cucumber sandwiches, Nutty apparently does not want kids, and apparently Cuddles is allergic to carrots. Or, I guess he isn't? I think this is a good example of how you really shouldn't trust much of what the devs actually say about the show, because a lot of it is just jokes and they change their minds constantly. But the fact this even existed in the first place is just too funny, and so of the time. I mean, how long has it been since you've last even thought about MySpace? 15 years? 20 years? Never? That's what I thought. Sadly, this would have to count as lost media, as some of these pages were not archived, so the pages for Giggles and Lumpy I couldn't find any archives of, so I think they're just fully lost. The final stretch, level 6. And starting off level 6, we have Rocky. Remember how the show aired on G4 for a while? Well, in the G4 airing of the episode Hello Dolly, the title card was actually changed to feature a character called Rocky. Obviously, this character isn't real, he's not in the episode, and the rest of the episode is completely unchanged. They just wanted to do something funny, I guess, so they just added this to the episode. This has never been seen in any other version of this episode. It's not on any DVDs, it's not in any of the web releases. In fact, this wasn't even known about until, like those bumpers, it was found on a VHS recording. I want to know what the thought process of adding this character was. Was it just an inside joke? Did they want to mess with people? I have no idea, but what I do know is that this is really funny, and I really don't see many people talking about this, so I think this really does deserve to be this far down. Official R34. Okay, look, I know I said I wasn't going to add memes to this list, and the title is a bit hyperbolic, but this is official media, and it's just too funny for me to not talk about. In the episode Easy Comb, Easy Go, we can see that Disco Bear has a picture of himself on his wall. However, the picture is cropped at the waist and we don't get to see too much of it. On the official Fat Cat Blogspot page, the full picture was actually posted, revealing that, yeah, the full image has more of the room visible as well as more of Disco Bear visible. The original picture isn't really that explicit, but just to make sure that YouTube won't take this down, I added some additional censoring. If for whatever reason you want to see the original picture, I'll leave a link in the description. View at your own risk. Okay, as an apology for making you look at that, here's one of the coolest pieces of Happy Tree Friends trivia out there that I wish more people knew about, because it is super awesome. Burn After Reading. Burn After Reading is a series of blog posts made by Ken Navarro. It shows off documents sent to the developers of False Alarm to help make the game as accurate to the show as possible, and this is so cool to read. It's basically a show style guide showing the thought processes and how the show is made, and this is the type of stuff they never really show in DVDs. If you want to go read this, I'll leave a link in the description, because this is one of the coolest pieces of behind the scenes material for the show ever released. It's genuinely fascinating and shows that this show, while stupid, had a lot of work and thought put into it. So yeah, this one is just so cool. It's a shame more people aren't talking about this, but hey, that's why I made this iceberg. Cuddles Pinata. When I was doing research for the bonus pack video, I found an old archive of the store that had a Cuddles Screaming Pinata listed for sale. I thought this was just a joke or some weird case of lost media that no one had talked about, but doing some research, I found that there are some pictures of this thing. Apparently they had a voice box that screamed whenever you hit them, hence the name. This is probably one of the rarest Happy Tree Friends merch items, as, you know, it's a piñata, you're supposed to break it. I doubt many of these have been kept in good condition for over 20 years. But if anybody does have one, I'd love to see more pictures and video of this guy. There's only 2 pictures of it on the whole internet, so it'd be good to get more media about it. Either way, this is a super cool piece of merch, and also I just love this picture. There's something just so ominous about it. Bitcoin. In 2015, the Mondo Media website posted a video called, "Oh, I've finally found a Bitcoin." The video in question is just a clip from the episode All Bottled Up. Specifically, the clip where Pop finds a coin on the ground, except in the video, the coin is edited to be a Bitcoin. This was never uploaded to YouTube, and the Mondo Media version doesn't even have a description. It's just so weird to me. What were they trying to say with this? Funnily enough, this wouldn't even be the last time the show promoted cryptocurrency, as in 2023, a line of NFTs were announced, and oh boy, they sure do look. Why would anybody buy these? Pop swearing. While this isn't in the actual episode per se, it is officially released content, so I do think it's worth talking about. Each volume of the TV series DVDs have storyboards for every episode. Sometimes in these boards we can see dialogue written for the characters. Obviously, these are not meant to actually be read literally by the actors. They're just there to help the animators and the voice actors understand the tone of the scene. Because of this, some of the dialogue that's written is pretty funny. The one that I'm talking about is in the boards for A Whole Lotta Love. During the scene where Pop is asking Handy for directions and he gets frustrated at him, the boards state that Pop is supposed to say to Handy, and I quote,
"Thanks for nothing, f***ed."
This is both very funny, as obviously seeing these characters who don't speak English swearing is funny, but it's also genuinely interesting to see how the storyboard artists try and portray the characters' emotions. And trust me, there are way more funny moments in these storyboards than you may think. There's so many, I could make an entire video about them. So who knows, maybe I'll do that. On the subject of show rules and breaking them, we end the Iceberg with Cuddles and Toothy talking. You know that it was a rule that there can't be any human language anywhere in the show? Well, there was one time that they purposely and blatantly broke this rule. The video in question is the Mondo Media video, Dirty Shorts Haunted Hangout. The video consists of Dan Avidan talking with the creators of various Mondo shows in a web chat, with Cuddles and Toothy appearing as plushes. And the plushes speak clear English. This video is super awkward and very embarrassing, which of course means that I'm gonna have to show you a clip. It'd be rude of me to not do that.
Whoa, is everyone okay? Alex, Lindsay, are you... Oh, come on! Where'd they go?
Dad, they're dead! There's a Halloween killer on the loose! And I know who did it too! And I'll tell you, as soon as I have a sip of my delicious beverage. Oh, I too will have a sip of my beverage.
I want you to just imagine this. These are two grown men sitting under a table holding up little plushes of dumb animals that talk like babies. Now this is funny enough to imagine on its own, but then I realized who these people are. That's Carlos Alisraki, the voice of Rocco. And that's Eric Boza, the voice of Bugs Bunny. The longer I look at this video, the more stupid and embarrassing it gets, and it is so funny. I could not think of a better, funnier, stupider way to end this Iceberg, and I love it. And there you have it. That is my take on the Happy Tree Friends Iceberg. Hopefully you learned at least something new. If I made a mistake in the video and got some information wrong, please tell me. I'll make a pinned comment detailing any possible errors I might have made if they are brought to my attention. Before I sign off, I'd like to credit two very important people. First, I want to thank Atanon. He drew the thumbnail, and he did a fantastic job. He's a great artist. Go look at his stuff. He's so great. I'm super thankful for him volunteering to do that. That was so awesome of him. And there's also Seafoam Music, who has a Bandcamp page full of awesome music. So if you liked the music you heard in this video, go check out their music. There's a lot of cool stuff they've done. They still do music actively. It's a lot of good stuff. High quality, would recommend. That was basically everything I had to say, so see ya.